All right. Well, I'm thinking about becoming a volunteer firefighter, and I'm graduating high school, looking into different career paths. I'm going to be recording this video for something I can share with my friends and classmates, and even a few others in my community. So, Ben, can you tell me about your career, where you live, and what's unique about your location geographically? And how,
Well, my name is Ben.
sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. My name is Ben Sharit. I'm a retired fire chief. Firefighter paramedic is the rank that I entered the paid fire service at. I live in Lake Tahoe, California. I worked in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, which is the south shore of Lake Tahoe on the Nevada side of the lake. I started as an 18-year-old, 18 years old on an ambulance with an emergency medical technician license or an EMT certificate. And I found that I was good with medical care and decided a career in the fire service as a firefighter paramedic was something I really wanted to do. So I started as a volunteer firefighter in a fire department in the Bay Area. It's no longer a volunteer, but it was at the time. And I went to paramedic school in 1983. I came to work one day at the ambulance company and they said, you have to go to paramedic school because we're going to paramedic. So off I went, and I got out of paramedic school at the age of 20, and I went back to work in Oakland, California on a private ambulance, and moved at the same time being a volunteer firefighter in Hayward, California. I was able to go to college and get a degree in fire science at the local junior college, and I finished here in Lake Tahoe when I moved here. But I got a job in the city of Piedmont for first firefighter paramedics in Alameda County, where we did ambulance transport as a fire service agency. Most of the time, private ambulance was what did ambulance transports in bigger cities. So that was a milestone. I took firefighter tests all over the area of California and West Coast, trying to get hired in a public fire department. And you can stop me and ask me questions anytime you like. But I was able to, I got hired in the city of Piedmont, which is in the Oakland Hills, as a firefighter paramedic, my dream position. And I took a test in Lake Tahoe about 4 months later. And that test was successful. And I was hired at Tahoe Douglas Fire District here in Lake Tahoe and as a firefighter paramedic. And I went from the big city where I had lots of calls to more of a rural department, which is you go from high-rise casinos and tourism here to long transports to specialty centers like trauma centers or cardiac care centers because they're spread out across the mountains.
Cool.
And I moved up the ranks in my career and I had a wonderful time.
Great. Well, so how long are you how long have you been a firefighter?
I've been a firefighter for 36 years. I've been retired for 4. And I started there at the volunteer fire department in Hayward.
And is that long of a career common to see in this field?
Typically 30 years is the average. It takes a big physical toll on your body over a long period of time. Anywhere from physical injuries to, just stress and always being ready to respond and so forth. So you don't find too many folks going beyond the 55 who are still working in frontline firefighting.
So what is the biggest satisfaction for firefighters? So why do they do what they do, or why do they love what they do?
I think the straight answer is we love helping other people and working together as a team, much like the sports you did in school. It's not a job; it's a lifestyle. It's a career. It's very rewarding. It's very stressful at times. There's long periods of boredom and repetition and training, and then there's moments of pure adrenaline and excitement, and you can change the outcome is what I've always said. You go on emergency calls and people are having the worst moment in their life, and you have the ability to change the outcome and help them to get through the situation, protect their property, and it's just very exciting and rewarding career.
Can you compare?
It's the best one out there.
Sorry. Can you compare how firefighting has changed since when you started in the 80s till now?
Fire service has changed slowly over time as a historic venue. I mean, fire has been around since caveman, and water is what we use to extinguish it, typically. And the fire service has been built upon tradition with many, many years, so it takes a while to change. But there's been some big changes in the 80s when I started. Self-contained breathing apparatus were just coming into being used, not as widespread as you think it would be back in the now as it is today. But a lot of the older firefighters that I was working with as a young firefighter were not really accustomed to using the self-contained breathing apparatus on fires, and so they had a lot more lung tissue damage and breathing problems in their retirement years. So I was fortunate to hit that big change in technology. But today, the fire service that I walked into in the early 80s is totally different in the sense of technology, GPS, chemical sensors and equipment. Our fire district had a bomb squad run by the FBI, and that bomb squad had more technology on post-blast investigations and blowing things up. It's pretty exciting stuff because of terrorism and terrorism threats. So what we find a lot in the United States is we move into this time of terrorism, that the federal government is more than willing to go to the front line firefighters, police officers, and provide us with equipment and training for specialty, because they can't cover the whole United States. So as another team approach, they go in and help us with the equipment acquisition and the training and so forth, that we provide the service. Today's fire department or fire service is not the same as it was back then, in the sense of now we're more of a fire rescue service, all risk, because they call you for anything from a cat in a tree to a bomb in a vehicle, you know.
Have you ever had?
It can be anything. Pardon me?
Have you ever had a bomb scare? Like a
Yeah,
real?
I've been on bomb calls before at the casinos.
Mhm.
People calling bomb scares after they lose all their money, and some of them actually place pipe bombs
Wow.
and try to get back at people that it's a very scary world out there sometimes.
I think something's covering up your camera there. Oh yeah, you
There
got
it
it.
is.
Perfect. So what are the biggest factors changing in the fires and the way that we fight them?
A lot of the big factors changing in the firefighting is the use of more durable equipment. Fire hoses, for example, fire nozzles are a lot more concise, figured out on gallons per minute, type of use. You know, when you have a high-rise fire that's 18, 20 floors up in the air, you have to overcome pressures, and you can't give a whole bunch of pressure to push the water up to the tower to the firefighters. They can't handle the nozzle with that, so these special nozzles reduce pressures on their own automatically. So instead of somebody standing in the hallway turning the valve down so you can handle those, those changes are present. GPS, technology and communications is always one of the biggest shortcomings in any emergency. Radios, pagers and teleprompters and so forth. Technology, we used to have a klaxon bell that would ring in the middle of the night in the dark and sound like a bomb was going off. Now it comes on, the lights come on really slowly in the room, and a quiet voice comes in and says, "You have an emergency call at 2239 Alameda Road." And it's totally different. Instead of being jerked out of bed on a wake for a call, it wakes you up very slowly, but quickly. We got a 1 minute turnout time is our goal. From the time the call comes over the speakers to the time we're driving away. But it found that it's the physical effects of startling you awake are found to not be good.
What's the biggest fire you've ever worked on?
Biggest fire?
Yeah.
Biggest fire I ever worked on is wildland, 280,000 acres. I wasn't on every inch of that fire. I was on a division of it. But wildland fires are the biggest. Pardon?
Is it in California?
San Diego fires in 03 and 09.
Oh yeah.
2 times.
Okay.
They burned through there. What happens when those large fires that we're seeing now today, it's like 4 different fires and they grow together. Because after a while, you take your manpower and equipment and you try to make sure you can get a line around the big fire ahead of time. Sometimes they have to grow together to get that done. So wildland's been the biggest fires I've been on.
Has your life ever been in immediate danger? Or like, what's one good story about that?
I think going in wildland fires have been sent to what we always tried to do when you're out there in the wildland and in structure firefighting is you want to have an escape route and a safety zone identified. Everybody on the crew, you have a 20-person crew. You have to know where that safety zone is. And we've been sent to safety zones twice. On one fire up in Susanville, we got split up between I had two engines on one side. The fire burned over the line and cut us off from the safety zone. And those guys had to shelter in place. And we did too, because we could not get to the escape route. Wildland fires spot ahead of them with burning embers, light spot fires, half a mile ahead of the fire. That's why they go so fast. And we got we had to hunker down, and as the fire burned around us, and we survived. Had another one in Nevada, the same thing in the brush in Nevada, out in the desert by Elko. It was like 8-foot, 10-foot brush, and the brush was the fires cut us off, and we made it to a safety zone that luckily a bulldozer was building at the time, and the fire just blew right past us. Bulldozer, luckily it saved all 20 engines.
Crazy. What's required of today's firefighter that might not be part of the stereotype of traditional firefighter?
Education. Real important to get at least a minimum of a 2-year AA degree, and a bachelor's degree is highly recommended. The experience of a bachelor's degree could be in something like public administration, fire administration. Those fields are great, but you can even have a bachelor's degree in marketing. And it just shows the ability for the candidate to follow through on a project and reach and complete a goal. So fire science is a 2-year degree. Fire administration is I have a bachelor's degree, but in education. So if you're young, like yourself, coming out of high school, I highly recommend the approach of getting higher education and working as a seasonal firefighter in the summers to really see if you really like the hard work and the excitement and some of the danger. But education is the primary thing that makes a difference today. We used to hire back in the 70s, 60s, 50s, way back before I was even born. They'd hire primarily from the trades, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, because they knew how to build things. And then a lot of firefighting is you have to be able to understand construction and take things apart. So today we're getting more people from education, less from the trades. And so we struggle with the mechanics of the situations where they have the knowledge and the ability to follow through on things. So education, because things are moving so fast today in technology.
Yeah.
We got to keep up.
If someone's interested, what are some ways that they can take to learn more and volunteer or just learn more about
volunteer firefighting is a really good experience. There's still primarily more volunteer fire departments in the United States today than there is paid. And a volunteer system is, really a dedicated operation because they end up, working a full-time career, going to college, then you respond from home. And you have to learn just as much as any paid firefighter on training and safety and so forth. So I suggest if you can find a volunteer department, get on with them. Any young person, I really highly recommend the seasonal job in the summertime, working for the Wildland Forest Service, state, Montana State Forestry, California Forestry, Nevada Division of Forestry.
Yeah.
Those positions, you can make good money, you can work all summer, and you can go to college and then come back into the fire service. And then you apply for a career in the fire service, and it shows on your resume that you spent every day off from college working as a firefighter towards a career as a firefighter. It really is an impressive resume.
What skills would you need to be a volunteer firefighter?
You have to have physical ability, mental ability, physical ability. You have to have they'll put you through a physical agility testing, climbing walls, dragging hoses, dragging a 180-pound dummy underneath low covering. We used to do them through like big pipes and stuff that restrictive. And you have to be able to do like 7 or 8 tasks in a 7-minute time, and to be able to do it well. Pull a hose, charge hose line, then you have to knock over a bucket with the water stream, go up, climb up a 5-story tower, grab a rope going through a window and pull up 3 rolls of hose back to hand over hand to the top, and then carry another hose pack back down with you and do the dummy drag and do the hammer station where you got to take a sledgehammer and pound on a mallet for 50 times. And it's pretty intense physical fitness. And a lot of them will help you prepare for it and work on it. But cardio work is really important, and upper body strength.
Cool. Interesting. Well, that's all the questions that I have for you today. Wait, oh, sorry. Looks like I got one more.
Sure.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with somebody who's interested in firefighting?
I think I taught fire science at the college here as well as the EMT course for like 16 years. And I always told my students, don't give up. It's not an easy career to get into. Those that stick with it will succeed. And a lot of folks get along the way. It's hard. It takes about 5 years of solid work and education to secure a good career in the fire service. But that's a very rewarding career because we're an expensive commodity to our public that we serve. What we pay taxes for is taxpayers, is public safety, police and firefighters, roads, basic services. And they're going to make sure we're going to hire the best candidate for the position. To be the best candidate, you have to be dedicated to working hard towards a goal that doesn't just happen over 5 weeks, 5 months, up to 5 years. I took 20 tests before I got a job, and that's a lot of tests. Yeah. And the experience is more than rewarding over 36 years. You get to retire when you're pretty young. If your health's with you, you have a great retirement. But the experience of the career is changing the outcome. That's the amazing part about it.
Amazing.
I would highly recommend it to anybody.
Great.
But you only want to put your life on the line with people that are willing to work hard, not the ones that will only do halfway.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ben. This has been very useful. I will